I do believe that the very first night I met Jimmy and JoAnne Moriarty, we spoke about the petrodollar. And it's something we've spoken about many, many times. Several weeks ago, we spoke about Vladimir Putin's refusal to reduce Russian oil production. Jimmy, JoAnne, welcome back to the show.
Hi,
Thank you,
Jason.
Jason.
Nice to be here.
We're going to
I
try to
think,
bring some
yeah,
clarity to the show, and really the thing that the bad guys always try to keep the truth buried under a bunch of layers of the onion skin, you know. But we've been talking about it for months. We were telling everybody that the markets were really in terrible shape and that they were covering it up. And what's happening is what we've been talking about. And what we're going to do tonight is we're going to go back and we're going to build the truth about what the petrodollar really is, how it was a fabrication of the bad guys in the first place, how they overprinted their fiat currency, and how the markets had actually collapsed about the 18th of February, and how the disease and all this other stuff is a cover up of that. We'll bring a lot of references and stuff in. We've got a real short update on Libya, just be 10 or 15 minutes on that, but we're really going to focus on what's happened. And when the markets closed in the United States tonight, oil was down to minus $37 a barrel. Since the international markets have opened up, it's bounced back to, oh my gosh, it's only minus $4 right now a barrel. So I
yeah,
guess we
yeah.
ought to be able to go to the gas station and they should pay us to take a little bit of that extra gas off their hands.
Well, that's exactly what I was thinking because, after college, I had this TV that was from 1980 something. It was like a giant CRT TV, and it was so worthless, I couldn't sell it for anything. I literally had to pay somebody to come and take it away. And so it seems like we're sort of in that situation with oil. And, people are saying, I've heard some other channels that are maybe not as informed about this as you guys are, saying that this is just due to a collapse in demand, and it's because everybody's locked in their house to avoid coronavirus. But Jimmy is shaking his head, and I share his concerns that this is linked to the petrodollar collapse that we were discussing back in March, when Vladimir Putin refused to join the OPEC plus price fixing cabal. What does the average American, what can we expect from this? I mean, what's going to happen?
Well, you have to go back before that, because for months and months and months, all the indices, the real indices, were indicating that the markets worldwide had collapsed. Like the Dry Baltic Index, and I'm a broken record on that, there were no raw materials being shipped into the manufacturing facilities for iron and aluminum and all this other stuff. If you're not producing raw materials, then you can't build things. And that's a real true indicator of what the world economies are doing. And so I've asked everybody to watch that. It's a little bit different system, but when I was a trustee for huge amounts of money, that was one of the indicators of the real state of the economies. And so that's one reference to look at. The second thing is the price of oil has gotten so high. First of all, it was affected whenever the Seven Sisters traded the position with the landowners. In the old days, oil was about $2.50 a barrel, and there was a 12.5% overriding royalty went to the landowner, and the oil companies paid the production, and they got the benefit. They flipped, and they made themselves the royalty owners, and they made the landowners, like Saudi Arabia and the other oil producing countries, the producers, and the price of oil ran up in those days to $100 a barrel. And that's when we had lines, maybe been $40 a barrel. And then we had lines backed up. Nobody could get any gas. Everything went through the roof. But yeah, that was in the 70s. So
sorry, Jimmy, aren't there fewer than Seven Sisters now? Hasn't Exxon and Mobil merged, and Texaco? There's fewer sisters now, right?
There were never Seven Sisters. There was the Khazarian Mafia. They owned all of them.
Mm.
But they had the Seven Sisters were the ones that showed to be the oil producers. But the same bad guys own Big Pharma, Big Agro, oil and gas,
Hollywood,
military industrial complex, etc.
For a long time, Paramount Pictures logo said a Gulf and Western company, and I was like, that's weird. Why would an oil company own the movie company?
There you go. But what really happened is as the United States started to produce so much oil to become energy independent, we had to go to really very, very expensive systems. The oil shale production is so expensive. And so in order to become energy independent, the government pumped all kinds of money into the companies, again, the oil companies owned by the Khazarian mafia, in order to get the oil production up here so we had the appearance of being self-sufficient, energy independence. What happened is our oil was so much more expensive here than it was anyplace else. It was costing us about $85 a barrel to produce oil out of the shale. Now, the West Texas out in the Permian Basin, now that's a lot cheaper. But all this oil is being produced. There's strategic storage all over the United States. These are salt domes that are impermeable. They're underground, and you fill them full of oil now, and then when hard times come, you can pump it back out, and you have very, very little loss. All those strategic storage salt domes are full of oil. Now then, price of oil drops, and these.
But why is that, Jimmy? Because we've just been producing so much oil and not selling it because Russia's got the price low?
Everybody has been. And you can produce oil until your tank batteries on land are full, all your underground storage is full, your pipelines are full. And then when you get to that point, you start loading up all the mega tankers you can with some millions of barrels of oil and send those out on the ocean and hope by the time it gets to its destination, there'll be enough oil used that you can offload it. But the problem is, with the economies collapsed worldwide, when you turn off 140 countries, which happened at the snap of a finger, 140 economies stopped. Then it wasn't somebody not driving to the filling station or whatever. It was that the economies had collapsed worldwide. So now then, all this oil that had been used all the time,
trucks aren't driving, all this stuff is slowing down.
All the tankers on the ocean had no place to unload.
And the problem with those tankers is they're stable when you're moving, but a tanker sideways in a storm is going to tip over, and then you got a real problem. So those things are monster. They're huge vessels, and they're very, very expensive to park someplace. Some of them are as much as $1 million a day demurrage. Wow. The little ones are 3 days for $1 million. So at some point in time, it's cheaper for them to give the oil away than it is to pay demurrage on that ship to sit there. That's where we are right now.
Wow. So and Tommy C is with us in the comments, Jimmy. He says, petrodollar frenzy attack. When we get to the sponsor exclusive portion of the show, which is going to be in just about 20 minutes, people can join us there on patreon.com/James and JoAnne Moriarty, patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, and subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. We're going to get really in depth on the petrodollar, how it was created, what it is, what it means to the average citizen. Because a lot of people, like, I don't own a car, I don't need to fly anywhere, I don't care how much oil costs, but that's wrong. I do care, because it's going to impact everything. And what I'm detecting from what you're telling us, Jimmy, is that this is one of the first signs of some of this kind of rollover, sort of collateral damage of this incredibly stupid plan of just locking everybody in their house for a month and a half to protect us from a virus that many medical doctors and other microbiologists and PhDs have said is not what we've been told it is.
That's true. Well, before that, Jason, the guys that are printing the money without any substance behind it, just the right to own the printing press and own the money and everything, they printed this phony money, and they literally bought the world with toilet paper.
And we're going to get into also, Jimmy, some more of the Khazarian mafia, because when you said that, I could see some question marks went by in the comments. We'll get in depth on that. But, you know, JoAnne wants to share some stuff about the tribes. There's some things going on in Libya, Turkey. It's Ramadan. There's kind of a lot of stuff we're going to cover.
Right. Ramadan starts April 23rd in all Muslim countries, or for all Muslims anywhere in the world. And that's kind of a quiet time for them. They hope, you know, the fighting will continue, because the Libyan army will never stop until they clean their country of these militias and terrorists that are now being brought in by Turkey. And Turkey had a big plan recently to take over Tarhuna that failed. They also went into Sabrata and released a whole bunch of ISIS terrorists out of the prison and committed crimes against humanity. And they've been absolutely terrible in Libya. And there's been a lot of, even the UN has now condemned the Sarraj government for working with these terrorists and these militias who are now flying.
Haven't canceled his damn charter yet, but they're
flying the ISIS flag on their trucks, and this is the UN so-called supported government that was never elected. That has no authority in Libya, that's been stealing money forever. So we're going to talk about that a little bit.
Mm-hmm. We've got Sunset Lights is saying the U.S. dollar is pegged to the petrodollar because petrodollars are traded in U.S. dollars. Not sure of all the details. I don't think that's exactly correct. There's a lot of confusion surrounding this petrodollar and what it is, what the value of it is, what the meaning to the average United States citizen is. It's very important to all of us. We Are Awake says F the UN. I agree with that. I think we're realizing that these one world government type organizations that present themselves as agents of unity and peace are not that at all.
No,
well, I'm going to give everybody a short synopsis of how the petrodollar was formed, why it was formed, who formed it, and what it meant to the bad guys, because they're the guys that did it. So, I will do that, and it'll be a very concise explanation of what the petrodollar. It won't be very long, and I can get through it in about 5 or 10 minutes.
Jimmy worked with the people that formed the petrodollar years and years ago, so he knows exactly why and how and what. And
there are not many of us out here that'll talk about that. I can tell you
that's why the confusion. Right. Nobody wants to talk about it because you get targeted. We're already targeted. We have layers of targets on us now. So we've been on lockdown since 2012.
So this is just a walk through the park for you guys. But regular viewers of Crowdsource the Truth and viewers of Unseen Libya with Jimmy and JoAnne Moriarty are going to know that Jimmy used to be a banker. Jimmy and JoAnne have been all around the world and have created multi-million-dollar businesses, including their oil services company in Libya that brought them there in 2007. It's a very lucrative venture that unfortunately ended abruptly in 2011 when the United States-led UN-backed NATO-backed, invasion of Libya destroyed the country. People who are seeing Jimmy and JoAnne for the first time tonight can go to their free website, LibyanWarTheTruth.com. You're going to want to purchase their DVD, Escape from Al-Qaeda. It's a $15 DVD, ships to you in the United States for $5. But if you become a sponsor of Jimmy and JoAnne on Patreon.com/James and JoAnne Moriarty, you're going to get free shipping on the DVD. And it's really worth watching. Everybody's locked inside their homes, wondering what's going on with the economy, wondering what the history of all this is, and there's a lot you can learn from purchasing that disc.
When we first met Jason quite a while ago, we were telling him our story and everything, told him we'd lost $200 million in Libya plus $5 billion in contracts. And he said, my gosh, you all are the biggest losers I've ever met.
I didn't say that.
Oh, no, he didn't say that, did he?
He does that all the time, Jason. We met you at Operation Classified.
Yeah. That's right. And we were talking about the petrodollar. We were sitting there at a cocktail party. Anthony Schaefer from the London policy, whatever, created a bit of a stir arguing with Jimmy. I didn't really agree with what that guy had to say. And I noticed that he showed up in an Epoch Times documentary that's getting a lot of play. It was talking about the beginnings of the coronavirus. And it was interesting to note that the CIA the reporter for the Epoch Times was saying that 33 of the 800 and some odd samples or whatever it was were positive for coronavirus. So there were a lot of things about that report that sort of took me aback.
Magic numbers.
Magic numbers. I mean, look, that doesn't mean anything, but it opens with Tony Schaefer, who has said some things to us that are questionable, acted in ways that are questionable. In his own resume, he says he's an intelligence operative who trained on the farm, and I got yelled at over email for saying he was a CIA guy. Isn't that what he's telling us, if he's an intelligence operative who trained at the farm?
He threatened me, told me he was an operative.
So he
Sounds
got
like a
angry
CIA guy
because
to me.
I called him a liar, and he
Jimmy
says,
called him a liar because what he said about
"You know
Libya
who
was
I
a
am? I'm an
lie.
operative." So what can I say?
It is what it is. Well, there's a lot to talk about, and I know that people are very concerned. There's going to be repercussions in the stock market. We don't know what those will be. We've got Huffman Aviation talking about petro/narco. A lot of people have questions that will hopefully be answered when we get to the sponsor exclusive segment in just a few minutes. Anything you guys want to say before we make the transition over there?
Well, I think it's going to be a real interesting show. We're going to pass a lot of information. They're not going to get it anyplace else.
The only message I have is people regain your sovereignty. Don't
Yeah.
allow anyone to stick a needle in you if you don't want it. You need to maintain your sovereignty. You are sovereign beings, and nobody has a right to do that to you.
Yeah, there's a lot of things happening now that seem definitely intended to push people towards, probably based on fear, this concept of security in a vaccine. I don't know if I told you guys this, but went to the local supermarket over here. There's a Whole Foods close to my apartment, and there's an independently owned local supermarket. The line at Whole Foods was down the street, so I went to the local place, and they wouldn't let me in without a medical mask. And I thought to myself, this is the precursor to them having a hand scanner where if I don't, give them the high sign for the chip, they don't let you in the store. So we don't even necessarily need any kind of like constitutional amendment. They could just create a coalition of private businesses like Amazon.com and Whole Foods and Microsoft and United Airlines, American Airlines, Amtrak, where if you don't have the chip and you can't prove that you've been inoculated, perhaps you become ostracized from society, unable to get a job at a major corporation, unable to have a credit card or money. There's a lot of things that could be coming that people should be very concerned about. And I think we have a limited window where we could potentially stop this. I hope it's not too late.
Well, the things that they're doing right now, they have no authority to do. And that's the problem if we don't comply. If that store you went into didn't comply, if none of these people complied, there's no way to stop 300 million people from going to work. They can't stop it. There's no way. So it's like the people in Texas. They're holding up signs everywhere saying, we will not take the mark of the beast. We will not have a chip put in ourselves. So,
And this is an open carry state. So everybody at those rallies carrying a long gun.
Right. Yeah, I mean, my concern is, we've been seeing a lot of Army personnel walking around New York City. And I mean, if it came down to it, if 3 Army people came knocking on the door over here and said, come with us, Goodman, you're getting your chip, what am I going to do?
Well, it's a tough choice.
It is a tough choice. And somebody put out some information, and I'll read it when we're on the show, about how you can not take a vaccine. There's 2 questions you can ask. And then if the doctor answers yes to both of them, which he has to, because it's one of them is a question about what's in the vaccine, and it's MRC5 or something. And that's DNA of dead babies, and it's in every vaccine. And one other question, if they answer yes, then you just say, okay, thank you. And the other one's about having a reaction with other drugs. You just turn and walk away, because if they answer yes, you don't have to take it, and you just turn and walk away. And it's
medical
like a legal
exemption.
guide.
So literally, it's get out of jail free card.
Oh yeah, people are going to want to hear about that. Well, we're just 10 minutes out now, so we'll give people a few minutes to get over there and join us on patreon.com/James and JoAnne Moriarty, patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, and subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. It's really important that people join us as sponsors, because we're seeing increasing censorship on YouTube. Every channel that's talking about these subjects has been demonetized. And, there's a couple disruptors who like to get into the comments and try and, dissuade people from sponsoring a show like this. But we've really kept the monthly subscription cost as low as we possibly can to try to open this up up to as many people as possible. The purpose of it really is to prevent the social engineering campaigns that rely on thousands and thousands of accounts that they can put into these free platforms. By making it $2 a month, we eliminate their ability to do that. If they want to troll us with 2,000 accounts, I'll gladly take $4,000 a month to listen to some crappy comments, but it makes for a much nicer environment for everybody to watch under, and it also prevents us from handing Google, through YouTube, the right to shut off any information that they don't like. People are buying back their ability to choose the information that they get to hear. So it's really important that people sponsor the show, and it's particularly important that people sponsor the co-hosts on Crowdsource the Truth. I couldn't do this show without Jimmy and JoAnne, and they've been through so much. They've got firsthand knowledge about stuff. I just pinched my thumb and my forefinger together, so someone will now say that I'm Satan or something like that. You know, you're doing all this stuff. It's different. People pull these frames. Oh, my pinky was up there, so now that was another thing I shouldn't do. I'm gonna have to stick my fingers under my, yeah, there's all these, you know,
That's what they are.
They're out there for sure. So we'll be back in just a couple minutes, and I hope that people will be able to join us for the sponsor exclusive show. I'm looking forward to learning more about the petrodollar and what this negative price per barrel of oil is going to mean for our economic future. We'll see everyone in just a few minutes on Patreon and Subscribestar.